Hello everybody. My friend David Bennett wanted me to do a little tutorial on how to prepare the turkey feather quill for strumming your dulcimer with. But before I do that, I wanted to show a little about the turkey quills and how to prepare them and stuff. But because there's the primary feathers and the secondary feathers. And I'm going to turn the camera around here and I'll show you what the primary feathers look like. These are the primary feathers. You can see that they've got it's like one side of them don't have much feather on it. This would be a left wing. And this one would be a right wing feather. And they've just got a little bit on each side. And that don't mean, I don't think that means very much to a dulcimer player, whether it's the primary or the secondary, which is what these feathers are. The secondary feathers. And you notice they have almost as much feather on both sides of the quill, whereas the primary feathers only have a little bit on one side of the quill. But like I say, I don't think that means much to a dulcimer player, other than I don't think the quills and the primary feathers are any more tougher or last longer or whatever than the secondary quills do. But the difference is, as you can see, the secondary feathers, you can see they're arched one way, but then when you look at them from this side, they've got a slight curve like that one. This one curves to the left, this one curves to the right, and that causes a little bit of problem when you're strumming, because one side of it, like this one is, when you're strumming, you can see that curve, it'll want to hook under your strings when you're strumming. But the primary feathers, the quill is mostly straight from one end to the other, although it does have an arch in it, but you only have that one arch to deal with when you're strumming. And other thing to keep in mind with these feathers is, I see a lot of people in the old time videos and stuff, they just leave the feather on and they'll use the big end, which if that's how you like to play it, that's fine. But with lice, and personally I wouldn't want to be holding something in my hand all the time that may have lice on it. I'm sure you probably wash them or disinfect them some way to get the lice off of them. And the other thing you have to be aware of is the part of the quill that goes into the skin. You can see that's a little bit of blood and stuff on the tip of that, and with bird flu and stuff like that goes around, first thing we see, especially with kids, is if they've got a crayon or ink pen, it goes in their mouth, and grown-ups do the same thing. So keep that in mind with some stuff like that. If you use a feather quill for strumming, you could get something or catch something off of them. Alright, I'm going to flip the camera back around and show you how to strip the feather. Some people that do trim the quill down, they'll use scissors to trim it off, and I've read in a place or two that if you trim the feather off, that it'll last longer than if you strip it off. But I've trimmed them and stripped them off. I prefer to just strip them off because it's a lot easier. It leaves the quill a lot cleaner once you strip it off. But you can do however way you feel comfortable with. If you want to cut them off, just take a pair of scissors and cut it as close to the quill as you can. And but I'll demonstrate how I strip the feather off now. So if you want to strip it off, you simply get it up here next to the end, hold the quill next to the tip as far as you can get, and you just start pulling the feather off. Sometimes you can get a hold of it and it'll go all the way to the end. Sometimes you have to go back. Once you get down a little way, you'll strip off pretty easily. And then to do the other side, you just do the same thing. Just hold the tip of the quill. On these primary feathers, the wide side will strip a lot better. But you just unzip it. There you go. And I've got a couple here. This one's a secondary quill, and it's got a little bit of an arch in it, but not much. But a lot of people hold them different. Some people hold them like sort of like an ink pen. I seen a picture of Jean Ritchie. She held hers like that and strummed it. And then I seen some people that hold it like this. This is the way I prefer to hold it, to strum with. I have a little problem with my hands and stuff that it bothers me to have to keep I like holding mine this way so I can stay a little more level with the fretboard, as opposed to this way. I tend to dig into the fretboard a little more, gets hooked on my strings and stuff. But everybody just have to experiment and find out their best favorite way to hold it. And when you cut them off, a lot of people will use the big end. A lot of people use them for noters, and I prefer river cane for a noter. So I've actually never even tried it to use as a noter, but I imagine they would probably make a pretty good noter if you wanted to use it. But it'd be kind of hard to hold this much feather, especially in the way that I strum with that much feather sticking out. It'd be a little aggravating, or even up that you'd poke your eye out. But the way I trim mine off is I like to have the tip of mine about the size of a match stem. It gives me a little more sound. But I simply take a pair of scissors and cut it off. Then I'll take this tip and I'll kind of take a piece of sandpaper and I'll round it. But that's a little finer than I normally use. But like I say, normally I get mine, trim it back till it's about the size of a matchstick. It gives me gives you more. You don't get much sound out of it because it's so flexible. Out here, you don't get very much sound if you leave it real small. But there would be some circumstances, I suppose, it'd be better to leave it fine on the end. That way, if you wasn't wanting to get a lot of sound out of it. But you can trim it back a little bit. Just if you get 2 or 3, trim it back a little bit. Keep going until you get the sound that you want. And for beginners, if you're just starting out playing dulcimer period and playing with a feather, quill, it don't have to be a turkey feather. You can use a chicken feather, crow feather, use a buzzard if you want to, as long as you didn't get caught with it if it's an endangered buzzard. But anybody can you can find feathers in the park or whatever. You wouldn't have to actually buy none. Just be aware of cleaning them real good when you bring them home. But what I was getting at is, if you're a beginner starting out, I suggest learning to play with the end strum. That meaning you lead off your strumming with an in stroke instead of an out stroke. I started out playing, that's how I started out playing, was with an out stroke on my strumming. So it made it a little, your melody string, your drone strings will override your melody string a lot using a quill to strum with. But some of the players that play with an in stroke, lead off with a in strum, their melody string sounds out a lot better, and maybe you could get by with a super fine tip like that, but I have to play with a little coarser tip to get my melody string to sound out good when I'm playing with a quill. But I hope this little video helped everybody, and if you have any more questions, you can message me or look me up. Slate Creek Dulcimers on Facebook or Slate Creek Dulcimers on YouTube. Thanks a lot.